Whoa. Welcome, space weather enthusiasts. We just had a triple M class flare. Did you know that there's a coronal mass ejection headed toward Earth? We'll talk about that and about how nobody else seems to have covered it. And lots more today at the Smash News Network, least busted name in news. And welcome everybody to space. Thanks for stargazing with us as we bring you the most detailed imagery of the sun and comprehensive daily space weather you'll find in the known universe. You may see these M-class flares happening here. They were happening as we prepared for the show. They came from this large leading sunspot group up here in the northeastern limb. You can see right at the end a couple of those flares happening. Here is a extreme close-up view. That is 304 plus 335 angstroms. Let's take a brief look at sunspots here. A huge conflagration happening in the northeast. We also have a high propensity for large flares in the southwest. And this sunspot group up here is fairly magnetically complex also, just tiny in size compared to these other sunspot groups. So high likelihood of flares down here and high likelihood of large flares up here. Those are the two spots to keep your eye on. And when I say eye on, well, the pun was intentional. Here's your SDO colorized magnetogram. Again, some M-class flares happening as there is a coronal mass ejection on the way to Earth, expected to arrive around midday tomorrow, sometime after midday tomorrow. So that's some exciting stuff. We're looking at the possibility of a KP7, a significant geomagnetic storm. We're hoping to see some aurora here in Lehigh Valley, Pennsylvania. So we're going to cover lots more space weather information here. First, let's do a brief rundown of which volcanoes are erupting currently. Starting the list with Sakurajima. Sakurajima is exploding and producing a 6,000-foot plume of volcanic ash. That's a flight level 060. Suwanosejima, similar size ash plume as it explodes, 6,000-footer, coming from Suwanosejima over the Ryukyu Islands. Lubitolo also producing an 8,000-foot ash plume, 19,000-foot ash plume from Popocatépetl in central Mexico. Nevado de Ruiz has dispersed its ash in Colombia, and down in Peru, Sabancaya is exploding and producing a flight level 250. It's a 25,000-foot plume of volcanic ash. Please do not pole vault the caldera. Interestingly enough, the seismicity has been kind of high across the U.S. This is a 90-day bar graph. And here's the past 24 hours, and look at all those quakes showing up in the U.S. Quite a few there on the West Coast, even some east of the Mississippi there. They are all of relatively small magnitude. Just a quick reminder that any earthquake can be a foreshock. We're going to cover quakes over a 5. So there was a 5.5 at Tonga. That was at 14:25 Universal Time yesterday. 14:25 Universal Time, a 5.5 struck Oceania there near Tonga. A couple hours later, there was a 5.2 at Vanuatu. And then at 15:27, there was a 5.3 in Chad. That quake was made in Chad. It would be a much more spectacular, fantastic, and just amazingly incredible earthquake had it happened in the U.S. But unfortunately, it happened in Chad. Papua New Guinea also had a 5.5. That was at 20:09 yesterday Universal Time. Yesterday evening. Indonesia had a 5.1. That was at 1:23. Peru had a 5.0 at 2:11. Panama had a 5.1 at 2:12. So it looks like a global seismic uptick here. Again, lots of quakes across the U.S. And there was a 5.1 in Indonesia early this morning at 6:15 Universal Time, and a 5.3 at Afghanistan. Let's just briefly show the U.S. map here since there were so many quakes in the U.S. One earthquake happening there in the foothills of the Appalachians in Kentucky. And let us know in the comments if you felt any earthquakes. We're going to get back to space here, but for a brief moment, let me plug our products. So one of the ways we support the channel is by the sale of merch. And our merch has just various pieces of wisdom, also inflammatory stuff. It's sort of in the theme of Spencer Gifts, right? It's sort of in that same mode. And this one is for project managers. So if you're not familiar with project management, every project manager who doesn't know what they're doing would like their project to be cheap, fast, and good. However, you got to give up one. So pick two. Hopefully you're not in the area of number three, where it's fast and cheap, but not good. In other words, it's bad. You've given up the good part. So stick with the good part and have it either be expensive, where it's fast and good but not cheap, or slow, where it's good and cheap but not fast. You can't have all three, so pick two. Links below the video to our Redbubble shop. Share that with your favorite project manager, perhaps. Tell your friends and foes about the merch. All kinds of interesting merch over there. And we've also got a paid endorsement. You may see a paid endorsement indicator on this video. That is from the Hemp Lucid shop. Today's featured product is the Full Spectrum CBD Lip Balm 3-pack. Perhaps a great Mother's Day gift for all of you trying to find a relatively inexpensive Mother's Day gift. $19 for a 3-pack of Hemp Lucid Lip Balm there. I've tried the peppermint. I've tried the vanilla. I think I've also tried the cherry. They are fantastic. Raise your mom's lip balm game, perhaps with some CBD lip balms. Links below the video to that. And we're going to get back to space here, so let's switch to, this is 304 plus 211 angstroms. And these are 24-hour videos, by the way. Let's also switch to, here's 211 plus 171 angstroms. And the 10.7 centimeter radio flux, by the way, is now up to 157 solar flux units, having broken through one of the support levels around 155 solar flux units. So it could be off to the races here with all of that activity that's recently risen in the northeastern limb. So there is the one-year graph. The radio flux is depicted here as the black line. Below it is a pink line. That is the 30-day average sunspot number, the Wolf 30-day average. And below that you can see the red line. This is sunspot number. And the blue line is the AP, which is just an average of global geomagnetism. NOAA not forecasting any geomagnetic storms or geomagnetic unrest. I don't know how anybody missed it, but it looks like everybody has missed the incoming coronal mass ejection. There's your space weather enthusiast dashboard. Not forecasting anything for tomorrow or for Friday, May 5th. So we are expecting a CME to arrive sometime after noon universal time tomorrow. Again, we expect to see a possibility of a KP7 there. Geomagnetic storm coming. And there is also some coronal hole high-speed winds on the way, which we'll talk about here. So NOAA has missed it. Everybody that we've seen covering or attempting to cover space weather on YouTube has missed it. And NASA has it modeled for the opposite side of the sun. So this is just a complete strikeout here from everybody except us. Here's NOAA's model. NASA's model. And again, you can see this is showing it on the opposite side of the sun there, or perhaps missing to the south. It's very odd there. The top view on the left is showing a different series of data there from the middle view, which shows the Earth from the meridional plane. I don't know what's up with it. We stick with our forecasts because they're based on facts. Next, the past 4 hours of Earth's magnetic moment from space, and things are geomagnetically calm here. We're seeing a fairly nominal solar wind series of signals, which we'll get to here. This is depicting magnetohydrodynamic pressure in the earthly system to about 12 Earth diameters. It's our geospace magnetosphere movie. The past 4 hours of Earth's magnetic moment from space. A slight change in magnetohydrodynamic pressure there at the bow shock region. Next, Earth's magnetic moment from the ground. And thanks for leaving comments, Robert and Mike. So this is the past 4 hours of Earth's magnetic moment from the ground depicted in nanotesla magnetic flux density. Again, things are geomagnetically calm. There should be a little uptick here right at the end of this 4-hour span, coinciding with that small increase in bow shock magnetohydrodynamic pressure. KP index is currently at 0.66. Again, geomagnetically calm conditions indeed at the moment. KP 0.66 is our global geomagnetism average. And let's look at the real-time solar wind next measured out at Lagrangian point 1, the gravitational equilibrium point about 1 million miles toward the sun, where we have the ACE and Discover spacecraft orbiting that gravitational point. So there's our real-time solar wind. We just did see a little uptick here in the density. So that was what was showing up on those magnetosphere movies. Current conditions are about 6 protons per cubic centimeter for the 6 protons per cubic centimeter for the solar wind density. Solar wind speed here 462 kilometers per second. And let's move to our magnetic data. So there are our GOES magnetometers here, smoothing things out following an extended coronal hole high-speed stream. You can see all these spiky sawtooth readings consistent with coronal hole high-speed streams. Again, the past 24 hours have been a lot smoother here. Nominal range for the GOES magnetometers. The GOES 16 and GOES 18 are located at geosynchronous near equatorial orbits. And let's take a look at some ground-based and stereo A and B's magnetometer data. This top view ecliptic plane field plot depicting the heliospheric current sheet and the polarity thereof is based on 51 ground-based magnetometers on stereo B and on stereo A, which are depicted by those plus signs there. So Earth is in a North Pole current sheet. No apparent changes coming soon to that. And here's our line of sight field plot. Here you can see the gong magnetogram, the solar B field depicted in blue, north solar polar field in green, south solar polar field in red. And we are seeing some indications that the north polar field is quite strong here. So we may see some significant intensifications in the coming days. It all has to do with what we were seeing on the top view ecliptic plane field plot. And here's our line of sight coronal hole plot, as we are still waiting for this North Pole coronal hole to leave the north heliographic pole. Let's bring up the latest image and check it out. We will not declare solar max until that magnetism right there, that North Pole magnetism, leaves the heliographic North Pole. It's got to make its way all the way down to the south heliographic pole before we get to solar minimum. And solar maximum occurs somewhere in there. At the moment, the south solar polar field has completely left both poles, but the north solar polar field still partially occupies the north heliographic pole. Let's take some imagery of that. Here is 211 angstroms for the past 24 hours, and a very well-defined series of coronal holes are rotating in here. So we expect this to be an extended and quite significant coronal hole high-speed stream, perhaps 700 or 800 kilometers per second there. We can expect to see that in about 4 days. So that's our 211 angstroms wavelength, and let's get to sunspots. Kind of important, as these sunspot groups over here are pretty berserk, especially 3293. So this leading group is where we just saw those recent solar flares come from. Exciting stuff. Again, don't rule out the possibility of an X-class flare from this setting group in the southwest. And let's take a look at sunspots in depth. So here is your, this is the SDO continuum, and that's not so exciting. So let's switch to the 1600 plus 1700 angstroms wavelengths. Now, 1600 angstroms is ionized carbon. 1700 angstroms is a series of different things, different aspects of the extreme ultraviolet spectrum. It's not a particular chemical signature, the 1700, but the 1600 is. That's ionized carbon. And let's get a little closer. So first of all, this setting region in the southwest is still quite magnetically complex and capable of producing an X-class flare, so don't be surprised to see that. Let's also don't forget about this group in the northwest. It's still got some magnetic complexity, but the real place to watch is, of course, the northeast. So definitely some serious activity going on up there. Those M-class flares were quite significant. We haven't seen any relativistic particles from them yet. And let's take a look at relativistic particles. There's your GOES proton flux. No spikes in that. And you can see this triple flare that just happened. Are we ramping up to an X-class flare here? The largest was a 7.27, which is just a little bit larger than this flare that happened on May 1st. So M7.27 was the largest flare of the past 24 hours. It occurred while we streamed this video. So let's take a look at flaring here. Got some fantastic money shots. This is 131 plus 94 angstroms. Here's a full disk zoom. These are all 24-hour videos, by the way, from helioviewer.org. There's that large setting region in the southwest. Here's the northwest. And last but certainly not least, here is the northeast. So that's actually showing the double M-class flare there. The third spike, not in this video because, again, this occurred, the third and largest M-class flare occurred while we streamed this video. So, of course, one of the things with covering solar activity, folks, is that, it's a constantly evolving thing. So while there's always news to cover, sometimes it's a little bit difficult to put together the appropriate movies for you. So anyway, let's take a brief look here at what's going on overhead. This is our star chart for Lehigh Valley, Pennsylvania. If you want to make your own, head to skyandtelescope.org. There's the current situation. Mercury and Jupiter leading the sun there. And before I forget, I meant to bring up an article today. I totally forgot. From SciTech Daily. So it's going to be a very great month for viewing the stars. And there's going to be a spectacular Jupiter moon occultation. Yeah. So make sure you're prepared to go out and look at the sky. Also, Venus is going to be the brightest that it gets all year in the month of May. So all kinds of highlights coming up in May. It's very rare for Jupiter to move behind the moon. That'll have somebody thinking that, of course, that's the signal that it's the end of times or something like that. So yeah, all month post-sunset fixture. Venus reaches its highest point in the evening sky in May. And on May 17th, a slim crescent moon rises about an hour before the sun with Jupiter quite close by for much of the U.S. and Canada. From some of the southern U.S. states, observers will be able to see Jupiter passing behind the moon as the pair rise in morning twilight. So super exciting stuff there. We're looking forward to showing you some imagery of that. New moon falls on May 19th. And May 20th to 24th, we'll also see the Moon, Venus, and Mars forming a close grouping in the west. You can find that article on scitechdaily.com. And here's a solar system forecast. This is where heavenly bodies are now. We'll advance this 1 week. And there's where things will be on May 10th. This is sort of the preface to our coronal mass ejections portion. So here are some coronagraphs. This is yesterday's imagery from George Mason University depicting the Soho Lasco C2 and the computer interpolation there. Some CMEs indeed happening. We're going to show a greater breakdown here. Here are a couple frames from today also. 6 additional frames there. And there may be another CME mixed in. Let's take a look at Soho Lasco C2 and C3. I saw something that looked like another halo. So let's see what's up with that. No, maybe not. So it doesn't look like we have any additional CMEs directed at the Earth here. Again, we are expecting a CME impact tomorrow, May 4th, around noon Universal Time. So here are a few more images. We've got stereo A over here. On the left, please pay attention to the time and date stamps. Those images are not synced. So I'm not seeing anything new there. If we've missed anything, let us know in the comments. And by the way, here's the past 24 hours in the SDO 171 angstroms wavelength. And let's move on here to look at filaments. We certainly do have large filaments here. The Remco Evenpool filament looks like it's actually in the process of ejecting right now, blasting off from the northwestern solar limb. And if you want to name filaments, make sure you follow us on Twitter, #NameThatFilament. Thanks to our new Twitter followers, our new YouTube followers, and especially to the Gold and Silver Smash Team level members, as these videos are brought to you in part by the Gold and Silver Smash Team. We are in the process of updating our hardware, by the way, so let's, before we get into bonus features, show the last couple of hours here, which should indeed include the largest flare of the past 24. In fact, let's actually switch to, let's try 94 angstroms here. This is the past about 2.5 hours. There's that triple flare. Again, plenty of filaments on the Earth-facing portion of the solar disk here. The likelihood of additional coronal mass ejection is very high. I thought I had 193 angstroms. We'll just stick with that. And we will be streaming this once again later today. We'll also show 131 angstroms at the moment. Again, this is the past about 2.5 hours. We'll stay zoomed in. And those 3 M-class flares there are showing up a little bit brighter in the 131 angstroms wavelength. That brings us to bonus features. And thanks for leaving a comment, Carl. All right, so here are bonus features, starting out with Satellite's community dashboard. Internal charging hazards continuing here, significant ones over the southern Indian Ocean. That could cause some communications breakdowns. Those internal charging hazards are caused by high-energy electrons getting inside of the internal circuitry of satellites. So some internal charging hazards there. If you want to follow it yourself, space weather can be followed at the Space Weather Prediction Center. That's the Satellite's community dashboard. Here is our GOES electron flux measured at the F-layer using radiography from the geosynchronous orbits of the GOES 16 and GOES 18. We are in electron warning levels, but that is leveling off. We've already reached the peak of this electron storm, it looks like. Things should be simmering down here, and we should see a big dip in the electron flux when tomorrow's coronal mass ejection impact occurs. Here's NOAA's forecast, and let's correct NOAA on this. This is going to be way down here when the coronal mass ejection hits. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it. Here's the 1-year graph to put it in context. That's the 1-year graph of the relativistic electrons, the greater than 2 mega electron volt electron fluence. We'll also show the layer of the atmosphere where it's measured. Feel free to pause the video if you're not familiar with thermospheric temperatures, electromagnetic radiation penetration, and molecular concentrations in the upper portion of Earth's thermosphere. Here is the F layer in vibrational frequency. That is one slice of the atmosphere located at about 300 kilometers of altitude as it calms down following a lengthy perturbed time. The ionosphere has been puffed up for like a week now, following that major geomagnetic storm featuring a KP8, which we forecasted, by the way. Apparently we're some kind of an outliner with being able to forecast CME impacts and intensities. It's not just a guess, it's an educated guess. Based on, well, let's just say a lot of variables. Anyway, that's what's going on in the ionosphere. If you're not familiar with this map, don't worry. Here's the anomalygram showing low-frequency anomaly in red and high-frequency anomaly in blue. So this is calming down. In fact, the ionosphere was so puffed up that we actually featured it on our thumbnails. So if you haven't seen those older videos, if you want to see what was going on with the ionosphere on previous days, go check out our older videos. youtube.com/smashomash/videos. Fun fact. Our thumbnails contain more information, more actual information, than entire channels' entire repertoire of content. Yeah, our thumbnails are more information-rich than entire channels, because it only takes a little bit of disinformation to become a liability instead of an asset to your viewers. Anyway, there's the latest image, 11:30 Universal Time ionogram and 11:30 Universal Time anomalygram. Again, things looking a lot more normal here on the anomalygram. We'll also show the total electron content forecast, which will show you the most likely places for GPS errors. As free electrons can cause signal refraction, feel free to pause the video on this frame if you're not familiar with distances to these things in miles. These are the lower 12,500 miles of free electrons. And things remain fairly orderly here. Some GPS errors around the equator at nighttime, but for the most part, the free electrons are where you may expect them to be. It's the coupled thermosphere, ionosphere, plasmasphere electrodynamics model. And if you want to read more about that, click on details, or impacts, or history, or data on the Space Weather Prediction Center's total electron content page. Here's a quick look at the sunspots. This will be our last look at this group, so let's show the high-res imagery of that. It is a beta gamma delta class sunspot, and it is capable of producing large solar flares. This group up here, what happened? I got confused. All right, this group up here is beta gamma class. Not really beta gamma delta class. I mean, you could make the argument that it is, but of course the exciting place to look is right up here. Let me see if I can get all of those. Nope. All right, we'll just focus on this group then. There we go. That leading group is the one producing these large flares, and you can see how magnetically complex that is. You see all those different polarity umbrae there. A leading North Pole umbra, and then a trailing South Pole umbra, and then another large South Pole umbra. And then a North Pole umbra at the back. And a lot of color mixing in there. That's what makes that a beta gamma delta class sunspot group. And let's not forget to cover these other ones. So we'll come down here now and take a look at these real quick. So this southern one is alpha class. It's only got one polarity umbra, as you can see there. And this northern group is also beta gamma delta class. So definitely a high probability for large flares continues in the northeast and also in the southwest. There's your full disk rock back, and it's time to move to meteorology. We're starting out by looking at the planet's lowest pressure. Also the planet's highest pressure, perhaps. Got some very high pressures down here, 1036, 1043, 1057 over the world's highest and driest continent, Antarctica, the highest average altitude and the lowest average humidity. So a lot of pressure there as winter approaches for the Antarctican continent, and the world's lowest pressure systems are surrounding this. So something like 960 hectopascals is the current lowest pressure on the planet. That is the mean sea level pressure that we're depicting here. The animation is the surface winds. So no pressures anywhere near as low as in the Southern Ocean. And here comes our standard issue meteorology, where we'll show the jet streams and the surface winds. So there are the jet streams of the eastern portion of planet Earth. And here are the surface winds. Surface winds of Europe, Africa, and the Middle East. There you go. Jet streams shown here. Jet streams of the Americas. And surface winds of the New World. Continuing on to show clouds and fog over the Americas. That's what's going on in South America. There's Central America. There's Mexico. And there is AUSA. Yeah, AUSA, A-U-S-A, the allegedly United States of America. Shout out to one of our viewers for coming up with that term. Former nation, now banana republic. So here's our weather.gov map, weather.gov. Some weather warnings there, some flooding forecasted for the upper portion, the northwestern portion of Colorado. Some hydrologic outlook as snow continues to melt. Massive amounts of snow, by the way, for a 7th consecutive winter for the Northern Hemisphere. Weather.gov, if your location's lit, click your location, and here come some forecasts. So first we'll show pressure and precipitation for the next 72 hours based on a GFS model. There is your pressure and precipitation outlook. Some of that precipitation will fall in the form of snow, including in Pennsylvania, West Virginia, and New York. Not just the Rockies, California, etc. That's your 72-hour accumulated positive snow depth change in inches forecast. DAG. Snow continues to fall into May. We'll also show the temperature anomaly forecast, again, since there is lots of snow melting, especially in the northern Rockies there, as anomalously warm temperatures show up. Much of the rest of the country there showing anomalously cool temperatures. That's your 72-hour temperature anomaly forecast in degrees Celsius based on the GFS model. We've also got windy.com data for you, and we're showing moisture anomaly. So most of the country here is fairly normal, except in the central part. So Missouri is sort of the center of a bunch of dry conditions there. Like 2.5 inches below normal rainfall there in the soil. One of the many features of windy.com, that is the check globe feature, moisture anomaly. Here's lightning for the past about 10 hours. There was quite a bit of lightning in Texas and Oklahoma. Let's see if we have any current terrestrial strikes. by perusing lightningmaps.org. Next time you hear thunder, check it out. You can convince the natives that you're Zeus. Are you able to forecast thunder? Do you want to look like a horror movie villain? Say something questionable and then have thunder roll in right after you say it? Well, lightningmaps.org may allow you to do this. Convince your favorite Viking that you're Thor or something with lightningmaps.org. Next, we've got U.S. Doppler radar, or we should. We've actually decided to use AccuWeather. So we used to show AccuWeather on the channel regularly, and because of some technical difficulties with some other websites, we've decided to go back to AccuWeather, and it's looking pretty smooth here, so not bad there. Not bad. And thanks for leaving a comment, Cookie Spacey. So there is your U.S. Doppler radar map. As a low continues to hang around the eastern Great Lakes, bringing in moisture after moisture. Here is your clouds and fog view, 3.9 micrometer infrared radiation, and here's 6.19 micrometer infrared radiation, which is our water vapor map. I think it's our water vapor map. Let me verify. Oh, hey, check, look at me. Look at me, I'm in space. I'm lost in space. I don't know what it is. But I'll tell you what's going to happen is a hardware upgrade. So, yeah. Thanks for everybody who's contributed to the channel. Just a quick reminder, we are paid just this side of nothing to put the content on YouTube. So help out the channel via the links below this video. You'll find links to our Hemp Lucid shop. You'll find links to the Smash team, etc. All kinds of great links there for additional content and so forth. So support the channel. Again, we are in the process of trying to find an upgrade. And there are certainly a lot of higher-end machines on the market. So anyway, just give me a moment here. I apologize for the delay. Again, take a moment to visit the links below the video, as apparently our system crash was not caused. Oh, man. Apparently our system crash was not caused by the radar.gov site. So that's a good thing. Anyway, we've got our browser back up here so that we can show you water vapor and then close this mother out, as we don't want the video to be too lengthy, so we can get it onto your screens as quickly as possible. So anyway, here is your... All right, screw that. Here is your recap. There is the clouds and fog scenario over the U.S. And there is the water vapor scenario over the U.S. Looks like clear skies over South Carolina. And by the way, thanks for tuning into the Smash News Network, least busted name in news. Once again, don't forget to visit our links. We've added a bunch of products into our Amazon shop. So if you haven't seen that, check it out. Links below the video to that also. Our Amazon shop, it now features some great office furniture. We talk about coffee regularly on the channel. And check out the bulk spices. Yeah, the bulk spices. You can save a lot of cash by buying your spices in bulk, so why not use our Amazon shop to do so and help us out that way? You can also become a member of the Smash Team at smashomash.com/Smash Team. That's the official subscription services site of the Smash News Network, least busted name in news. Why? In 2019, a crack YouTube unit was sent to social media prison for a crime we didn't commit. We promptly escaped a maximum security social media stockade to the internet underground, where we survive as producers of fortune. If you have a problem, if no one else can help, and if you can find the content, maybe you can hire the Smash Team. No, you can certainly hire the Smash Team, and you can find links below this video as well as on our homepage at smashomash.com. And welcome to the Neo Renaissance. Once again, congratulations on realizing the channel exists, where we bring you space weather facts, because we are in the process of advancing cosmology through heliophysics. So that's the situation. Thanks for tuning into the Smash News Station. I've been your host, Dan, a.k.a. Smash-O-Mash, signing off. And may that solar wind be at your back.